Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September meeting of the Board of Governors of the Lehigh Hampton Airport Authority. Sorry. Well, for September results. Our October meeting for September performance and, hey, Barry. At this meeting, we'll review, as you're aware, our results for September, both operating and financial. It's, I believe, going to be another good report, so I'm pleased to get into that as soon as possible. And above and beyond that, we have one exciting matter that is going to be presented, a peek under the tent about the future of the Airport Authority and Allentown in particular. So very exciting stuff. Hope you can stay through what probably will be a little bit of a long meeting today. So from a timing standpoint, we're probably going to go at least 2 hours. And then we have an executive session at the end of our meeting today, which will be a little lengthy. I don't know if we'll take any votes. We'll make sure we make that call right before we go into executive session. But so with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and Sylvette, if you can please do me a favor and do roll call. Pledge of allegiance first. Yep.
Everyone please rise and face our flag and we do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, and now Sylvette, if you could please conduct the roll call.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. All right, Brian Daines. Chuck Dicon.
Here.
Mike Dowd.
Here.
Frank Facciano.
Here.
Glenn Geisinger.
Present.
John Hayes.
Here.
Larry Hemberger.
Present.
Ed Lozano.
Present.
Jeff Matskin.
Here.
Glenn Riedman. Ted Rosenberger. Mike Sturchik.
Here.
Matt Turk.
Here.
Chris Worley.
On the phone.
Tara Zrinsky.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Sylvette. And with that, we'll open up our meeting first with public comment. Do we have anybody who would like to make public comment regarding the Airport Authority? Okay, hearing none, we'll continue. First order of business is approval of our meeting minutes from September 24th. Could I please get a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Okay, opened by Mike. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Matt, and we're going to open up the floor now to discussion. Any questions, comments, edits on the meeting minutes from our last board meeting? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from September 24th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we'll continue into the report of our committees. We'll start with our treasurer's report. John, I know you're on the phone. Thank you for joining. And any opening comments? Okay.
No comment. Todd will take care of the formal presentation.
Okay, thank you, John. So I'll pass the floor over to Todd.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Go through the first 3 quarters. We're already through 3 quarters of the year, so this is where we are through September. For the month of September, there we are at 171 net income versus budget. That's a $333,000 positive variance. Again, because we had a very low number projected for the month of September. That's just what we had expected. A lot of that is due to traffic being up. We got more parking revenue. We have some additional revenue sources that we didn't have at the time we started our budget. And we've managed our expenses quite well. This kind of lines them up right here. Go to the next slide. Year to date, similar results. I think we budgeted somewhere around 4% of net revenue. Last year, we were about 15, 16% of revenue. We're about 12% of revenue. Again, pretty good stuff. 3 quarters of the year, you get a really good feel for where we're going to end for the year. But again, great stuff. Same stuff I just mentioned, increased traffic usually directly impacts our parking. Some of the other things that did happen after our budget, we got some additional revenue from our de-icing early on. We had some additional land options that have helped us throughout the year, so that's been really positive for us. And remember last year, one of the things that we had was this kind of, what John always calls the non-recurring, recurring income, which is the we had the roof repair, but we also had the easements, which was about $284,000. Total was like $400,000 of miscellaneous income last year. So again, through three quarters, we're doing a lot better. Again, you're at 782. If you remember, our budget for the year was 893,000. So again, well ahead of that pace. Go to the next slide. Again, you can see where we are. Traffic up year to date. This is always nice to see. Allegiance up 17, but everybody else is right there with. If you go back a few years, you can see that that's not always been the case. So it's nice when they're everybody's moving up together. So it's great because we want to see increased traffic across all of our airlines. Again, next slide. And this is highlighting the things I already talked about. Expenses, I think we went over this a little bit in our finance committee meeting. A big delta for us is the personnel. We saved about somewhere around 700,000 just in personnel savings on those items. Parking again up because of the traffic. We did budget an increase, but not as much as what we actually seen. And again, some of that land option helped us out as well. As you remember, in Queen City is turned around because we have the thank you, medevac. We got the fueling and stuff at medevac, which again wasn't budgeted, but it really helped turn Queen City around. And that's actually going to be projected over into next year's budget, which will help us as well. And net income also up. One of the things that also was up was interest income. As you remember, when we did the budget, interest rates were lower, and then they came up after we did our budget. Obviously, they came back down since then, but during the year, it's helped us out. And next slide. And this is just our cash flow. Again, we've made a consistent effort to stay above 60, including the reserve that we added in here. We added in some extra reserves. On top of that, that's basically 5% of operating expenses. This number goes up, anticipating some of our increased expenses for next year's budget. But again, you see it's 104. We only showed the last three. That's what's in-house for the next 3 months, and then we have the end of the year, which would be the end of the 12 months. But you can see even through these 3 periods, they're all above 60. Now, the one thing that's not on here is the airline settlement. We talked about that a little bit. I think year to date, we have about $650,000 that we've accrued for the airline settlement. And just to refresh everybody's memory, airfield, terminal, and apron are designed to be break even in a perfect world. Not quite that simple. So if we're doing better, we obviously are partners with them. We have to give some of that money back. And we are slowly approaching the point where we're break even long term with the airlines. I mean, if you remember years back, we would constantly go back to them at the end of every year. Please give us more money. Please give us more money. In the last 3-4 years, we've given back a nice chunk of money. Last year itself, we gave back over $800,000 to the airlines. That obviously makes them feel better about doing business with us. Again, that's it. Any questions? Pretty cut and dry. Move it up to the floor. Okay.
Great. Todd, thank you very much for that excellent report. John, great job. And what we'll do is I'll take a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented by Todd. Can I have a motion, please? By Mike, and then seconded by Frank. Okay, opening up the floor to any questions, comments regarding the treasurer's report. I'll make one quick comment before we take it to vote. I think it's been a wonderful 3 quarters. What we've seen is consistent revenue growth, which is number one, what we set out to do, right? Driven by positive airline growth and balanced, as you mentioned, Todd. Number 2, management has done a wonderful job of managing expenses below plan consistently. Great job. And then our net income is solid, and taking into consideration all of the one-time charges being very well financially documented. So I think this is just a sign of a good performing organization, and let's bring it home in the last quarter. So let's continue to do what we're doing, and I think we'll have a banner year again. So great job by all. With that, I'd like to then take this to vote. All those in favor of approving the treasury report as presented by Todd, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Unanimous approval. Thank you very much, John, Todd, and the team for a wonderful report. Now I'm going to pass the floor over to Ted, if he's here. Ted, are you, no, he's not on the phone? Okay. Chuck, were you present at the GA meeting?
I was.
Can you, would you mind doing us the honor of just a quick summary on the GA? I think there was one or two things that maybe want to highlight in support of Ted, or I'm happy to do it if...
Yeah, go ahead, Eddie. I don't have anything for me.
Okay, gotcha. So just real quick on the GA committee, we did meet last week. It was a positive meeting. A couple of things that I think came to mind is we're making pretty good progress on the FBO building at Braden. And I think there was what is great to see, a collaborative meeting between staff and the GA community on the design of the building. So this is a great example of now starting to work with our partners and friends at the GA to finalize the design. I think pretty soon we're going to be selecting a contractor to start erecting the structure. And Tom, if you can, maybe just highlight, when's the expected timing for the completion of this roughly?
Yeah, so we're about a year out from now. So
Okay.
you're looking until we get this design finalized, package bid, construction starting in spring, and then, moving forward, so.
Okay, so we're on track to hopefully have this completed within a year. I think one of the highlight was Queen City. We've started some of the, I think, clearance of the obstructions. I think that's good work, good progress, and hopefully that'll make for a safer airport and some better landing and takeoff situations for our pilots. And then one last one, a small one, but kind of almost a little bit of a butt joke, but every year we have some issues with birds on in the hangars, in the fields, et cetera. It's a little bit of a nuisance, but I would tell you that it's a serious nuisance. You have birds that can damage multi-million-dollar aircraft, and in some cases make them unsafe. So the team is getting very proactive, and again, working with our tenants and our partners on making sure we have a mitigation plan before this happens. So last year we were kind of working together to try to address the issue. Now we're going to have a solution hopefully in advance of the issue. No guarantees that we'll find that silver bullet because it's a tough issue. But the good news is we're already discussing it, and we're going to have meetings with our tenant partners and hopefully have a plan in place before the season even starts. Okay? Those are three highlights. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, there's one other issue, a collaborative effort with staff and members of the GA public about a mural that was going to be affixed to the side of the building that would display to the public and invite them in. It would also be pleasing. So we've been making some progress on that.
Great, Jeff. Thanks so much for highlighting that. Again, good example of collaboration between LVGAA and the staff on Braden and erecting a mural that everybody agrees to and supports. And I think we'll put Braden in the forefront of smaller airports in the region. So great. Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments or questions regarding the GA committee? Okay, so I think that's it. We'll move on. There's no need to take a vote. Let's move on to the business committee, and I'll pass the floor to Mike Dowd.
I was unable, Eddie, to be at that meeting, so Matt Turk chaired it, and I believe there's one action item on the agenda.
Yeah, and Darren's not here to describe it. You'll be able to cover it, Doc?
Sure.
Great. So, great meeting, good updates on things that are happening in and around the authority. One little piece of business that is related to something that a new development that we announced a couple months ago related to Allegiant. There's a capital purchase that is required to facilitate that. Tom, can you describe that to us?
Sure. Absolutely. So this one does relate to acquisition of a storage trailer, but we're actually referring to this as a manufactured storage building. And this relates to basically some commissary space for Allegiant for storage of some of their materials as part of the support operation beginning in February. Unfortunately, there's no room at the inn. The terminal is full, and so we're looking to add this trailer to provide about 1,000 square feet of space. And so we would acquire the trailer. This would be through the use of our lease line, but the price of that is $79,000, and basically looking at a 4-year payback on that trailer during the time. So just about 48 months till we could see the payback on that with Allegiant. We've talked to Allegiant about this. This is certainly going to work for their needs. The building itself would be purchased through the TIPS program, which is the interlocal purchasing system. It's a cooperative purchasing program that we can piggyback onto, have the judges team review that. So no need to do a bid on this one. This is simply looking for the approval of the acquisition of the 24 by 40 manufactured storage building for Allegiant.
And we had some discussion at the meeting related to payback periods, and I think that although it's a non-budgeted item, I think Todd viewed it favorably. So I guess I'll have any discussion around the item. All right.
Just had a question. Where will the building be located?
It will be located actually, Larry, on the east side of the air carrier apron, nearest the old terminal building in the old tower.
Can I get a motion to approve the acquisition of a manufactured storage building?
So moved.
Jeff, and second from Glenn. Any other questions for Tom related to this? All right, I'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're the proud owner of a new manufactured storage building. It says no additional material to report from the business development committee.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, Mike. Matt, Tom, we'll continue on with our Finance Committee. So Glenn, I'm going to pass the floor over to you, and please present the Finance Committee results.
Sure. Well, as far as the committee meeting itself, we already went through the treasurer's report. You heard that. I think that was the main item. There was one business item that needed to come before the board today, and that is the approval of the extension of the reimbursement resolution for the lease line of credit. And strictly, we haven't used all the funds out of that line of credit. Because of the timing of it, we simply need to add additional time till the end of this year. We have about 1.7 million, that's right, 1.7263120. There we go. So it's more of a housekeeping item than anything else. If there's any questions on it, I'm happy to answer.
And we'll probably have to do it again at
Right,
the beginning
of
of next
next
year.
year.
This is just kind of getting us to the end of the year, then we'll do it.
How long is that extension for?
This is just till December 31st for now.
Oh, just for this year?
Right, just the rest of
And
it.
then do it.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to do it again in January.
It's a short-term extension, just to give us a little more time to negotiate the longer term. Okay.
Anybody have any concerns, questions? I asked for a motion then to approve.
So moved.
So moved. I have a second. Second from Tara. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moved unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. And we have a second order of business that we just added, Glenn, and if you don't mind, we'll cover it here. Pass the floor over to Tom and Todd for discussion on the operating budget for next year.
Okay, great.
All right, normally in sometime around October, we give you kind of our preliminary look before we come back next month with our full budget. We had our initial discussion, and a lot of this revolves around the assumptions that we use to kind of make our budget. Important thing to piggyback on something that the chairman said, we're trying to get ourselves on solid footing, continue on solid footing. One of the things I thought was really interesting, I went back to 2002, and we've had out of those 19 years, there were 2 years below 20 million in revenue. 2002 was 19.6, 2013, 19.6. So we didn't do anything, and actually, for most of that time, there was probably, with the exception of the last few years, we never got above 25 million. So that just kind of shows you what's been going on with this airport for a long time. You know, we talk about all the time, you know, we do a great job of managing our expenses, but you can't cut your way to success. You have to build up that revenue. So this year, we're actually in the $35 million revenue. So it just shows you the last 3 years, we've been above 30. But prior to that, think about from 2002 to 2013, we remained pretty much flat in revenue. So that's not the greatest thing in the world. And now we're kind of see that growth, which is great stuff. So again, I always start out with what's our vision, to be financially responsible, strategic, and manage. For us, I have to manage our expectations. We got a lot of needs. I see consultants back there, they want to ask me for money. You know, a lot of people want to ask me. We just only have so much money, And we got to manage expectations, but we want to make sure we're fiscally responsible and really take a good job of taking care of this community asset, which is the airport. This is kind of what we started this year. Again, we always start off with managing the minimum we need to just run this airport safely. And that's kind of what's happened in years past. We have so much land that just to manage this airport, without the passengers, it's a lot of expense. We all obviously want to make sure that we manage our debt service, which is at 1.57. We continue to do that. This year, we segregated a portion for some of the things we're talking about going forward. Cedric talked about that in his presentation before, about kind of that 50,000 passengers to kind of segregate for future capital needs. We've actually done that in our budget, to segregate that money to kind of go along with that presentation. Obviously, we want to provide great service, but I did put in there affordable. We're truly not Ritz-Carlton. I know we try to be from time to time, but we're more like a Holiday Inn. We continue to invest in our future. Again, you've heard us in the past make additional investments in our pension and other infrastructure, and we always want to invest in our people and training and that stuff. And again, even though it's really important, it's the last on the list, is try to maintain competitive on our rates and charges, because we obviously want to attract new business, and if we're too expensive, we can't do that. Always start off with a revenue-based budget. Key, that sounds pretty basic for anybody doing budgets, but there was years when we were expense-based budget because times were really tight. So we're a revenue-based budget, so we have the revenue to cover our expenses, which is great stuff. We base it on 5 cargo ground handling. We have 1368 Allegiant flights. If you think about it, we're adding a crew base. That's just our best guess on some of the early scheduling. Year to date, we have 889. We're projected based on what's out there for the rest of the year, 1158. We budgeted 1,004 in 2019. So you kind of see where we are. Again, down here, when you talk about passenger enplanements, we estimate 486 for next year's budget. We're at 408 budgeted this year. We're at 347 through September. Again, everything else is consistent with some of our estimates. We have a lot of leases, and those are consistent with whatever is in the lease that we built into our revenue. These are just the increases we have in there. Pretty much everybody's in that 2.75 for non-union, Teamsters, and the rest of them all around there. We did make some additional market adjustments for some folks that are below market that we feel we need to do to kind of get those positions filled. Snow, always a big deal for us. We put in an average snow winter, which is about 15 events. Remember last year, remember January, we had a really bad start to the year because we had a few events in January on the snow side. 3% increase on the medical. We really negotiated that number down to get that to that number. High dollar deductible, again, that's something we're doing with our health savings account for the non-union and the firefighters, and we're happy to report that the police are going to be joining that plan come 1/1, assuming that we approve their contract 1/1 of 20 as well. And the Teamsters and the rest of the groups are also consistent with what's in their negotiations. 0% on the dental. I don't think we got an increase in dental in 100 years. The 2% is what we estimate for our payroll on the self-funded unemployment. It's a placeholder. If you look at our actual number, it's like 0.3. I just feel like 0.3 is just irresponsible, so we put in 2% as a placeholder because we are self-insured. Workman's comp, a really big deal for us. We actually got a 40% increase. We worked hard to get it down to that number. 40% increase, that's a big percentage of our overall compensation. I think that's about 6.6% of payroll just for workman's comp. And then pension estimated at 10%. Again, right now we're about 1258. That's where we are. That includes kind of segregating that 50,000 for 50,000 passengers, for the checkpoint. And last year's budget was 893. If you go back to 2018, I think we were closer to 300,000 in our budget, somewhere around there. Again, net revenue, I mentioned that before, 1.57. And I always talk about the snow because it hits us in so many ways. It's just an average kind of winter events. If it's 30 events, obviously that's going to have some budgetary impact. Next slide. And always like to point out kind of something that's really critical for us is the rates and charges. You can see historically from 2007, the average is 4.26. For the landed rate, which is probably the most important of all the rates, the terminal space is really about managing space. It's important, but not nearly as important as this rate here. You can remember we got all the way up to $5.18. And again, now we're at 472. Preliminary numbers show it's coming down slightly. This number is probably going to go up some. And we'll have to deal with that later, but we'll bring that to you next one. So that's where we are. I think that was it, right? Any questions? Again, it's a responsible budget. We feel good about it. We're going to bring the full presentation to you in a few weeks. We'll email that out to you so you can take a look at it, and then we'll go over it in committee in depth. But it's pretty much these assumptions here. I mean, at this point, it's just plugging in the numbers to make sure we obviously meet all the goals that are put out. Any questions, concerns? Okay.
Just one time
Yeah.
I'd add is, are we still gonna bake in the 5 or 10% emergency fund contingency in the budget for next year?
If you remember, that's going to be the cash flow. So
Cash
we
flow,
always
okay.
continue to put that in there. And that actually, on the cash flow that we did for the treasurer's report, when you start going into September, you actually see that number going up.
Yep.
So that contingency actually went up. So we're continuing to do that. You just see it in the cash flow.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
No, just, I mean, thank you, Todd, very much. And, yeah, it's an overall statement. I think the budget is very responsible based on the growth we've seen. I think it's conservative, as Todd always likes to be.
Once or twice, I said that.
Once or twice, you may have said that, yeah. But when you look at the numbers, the growth overall, the tracking that we're seeing on employments, the tracking we're seeing on parking, et cetera, all the other services that are being utilized, you know, I think we've got a very responsible budget for next year. I think we've got a 99.9% chance we're gonna make sure we hit all of those markers.
Okay.
Right?
I like the way you think.
Yeah, like that? Yeah, I'll give you a little marker.
Okay. Thanks. Appreciate
But,
it.
you know, just this year alone, I think we were budgeting 408, right?
408 in
408 was our
employments,
number for employments. We're at 347 already. You know, I think we're gonna well pass that 408 number. And I think it's great testament to everything staff's done this year. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate the Finance Committee report. Thanks for all the work with Todd and the team. So nothing to vote on today, but we'll get the financials and the projections out soon, and then we'll get it for approval shortly thereafter. Okay, so thank you again. Finance Committee. We'll pass it over to myself, I guess. So the last committee is the Executive Committee. At the committee meetings, we did principally two things. We discussed the police collective bargaining agreement, which we made some good progress on, and we're going to vote on that today, but we're going to have a brief discussion in executive session. Okay, so we're going to defer that to executive session a little later. Good progress, so don't foresee any issues. And then number two is we had quite a few matters that were relating to development, et cetera, that we covered in executive session. So the majority of our executive committee meeting was an executive session. So we'll cover that again today in executive session. So that's my report. Other than that, I'll pass it off to Tom for the director's report.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. So as Todd mentioned, we did see a good September from a traffic perspective. Again, a 16.89% increase. And what's nice about that number is that's now two years, 24 consecutive months of positive growth in passenger traffic. It was interesting comparison to see our year-to-date passenger traffic at 690,000, and 690,000 was our total passenger traffic just 2 years ago in 2017. So already through September, we've hit that mark for the total year we had in 2017. The takeaway, I guess, for this one is really United with a 44% increase, and United's very pleased with that route and how we're doing on Chicago. Just taking a look at DOT data, and there's grades assigned to hub routes and network route grades, and it's interesting to see 82% load factor on average for them on Chicago, but a grade of 1 to 4 is what's assigned by the DOT, and 1 being the best, and we've got a 1 on that route. So it's really fantastic to see that, and you can see that in the numbers here as well. So looking forward to, again, as Todd points out, the continued success of all the carriers, so Allegiant and all the legacy carriers. So I think that's something that we're going to continue to be looking at based on projections for the 4th quarter. If we take a look at sort of event follow-up from our last board meeting in September on the 24th, we did provide copies of our 2018 annual report. We have to wait till we get through May and approve the audit until we can get the annual reports put together, but those should be in front of you now. If you've not had a chance to look through those, I think they came out pretty nice. So we have those out for distribution now. We also concluded on October 12th our TSA pre-check mobile event, and we enrolled 474 new individuals into pre-check. So just at ABE now, we're up to about 9,700 enrolled into pre-check just from our pre-check events. October 1st, working with Colin, we did a bit of a media blitz. We're 1 year out now from Real ID, and Friday we're 11 months away as we start November 1. So Real ID is coming. I now have mine. I can say that officially. I have the gold star, first one I ever got in school and otherwise. But so this is going to be something we're going to work on kind of on a monthly basis here out as we're talking to everyone. We want to make sure people are aware of this importance of Real ID, October 2020. We also celebrated Customer Appreciation Week, October 7th through 11th. We were at Braden, we were at Queen City, ABE in the terminal. We had a great 90th celebration, so just a great week to spend with our tenants, our customers, our stakeholders, really appreciating all their support. And I did want to mention too, Connie is here, Aviation Services once again received a perfect audit by Allegiant for the month of September, and it's a pretty extensive process to go through that audit. Allegiant came out and actually put together a celebration for the team here at ABE. Once again, highest level of service, 0 discrepancies, so just remarkable. So I do want to say thank you. And then just in terms of upcoming events, so we've got November 4th, announcing service to Dunkin'. Just kidding. So this is Dunkin' Donuts ribbon cutting, 9 a.m. Wiley Concourse. Join us. I can't promise the munchkins, but I'll get you a cup of coffee if you're there. November 25th is a Monday in second level main terminal. We're having a blood drive, so that should be from noon to 5. And we did something like this similar a couple months ago, very successful. So if you are able to donate, I encourage you to stop out. It's the 25th of November. And then December 4th, we'll be attending awards ceremony. We're not sure if we're walking home with anything at this point, but it's pretty fun. This is the second straight year that the LNAA is a finalist for Business of the Year by Lehigh Valley Business. So we're excited about that. See how we make out. But either way, just to be a finalist, I think is a really great thing for the organization. We're really proud of everybody for everything they do. So that being said, I think that. And Frank, did you have something else you wanted to mention?
Yeah, do you?
Sure.
So the Chamber annual meeting is Thursday, November 7th, where the Lehigh Valley International Airport is getting the Business of the Year award, for sure.
One of them.
So Tom will be there to present. I know we have a table, I'm sure you'll fill it. And yeah, that's like, what is that, 10 days, 9 days away?
Yes.
It's a big deal. About 1,200 of our closest friends will be there, and it'll be a great show.
Yeah. Didn't want to steal your thunder, but
No, I totally forgot about it.
No,
You're
no,
coming, right?
Certainly didn't forget. And so I think that'll be sending out some information. We'll have an additional table there if people want to attend. So.
All right, 2 tables.
Yep. So that'll be great. So with
And
that,
I'm sorry, but as we have been doing for years now, the airport always gets on stage and does a ticket giveaway for Allegiant to any of their destinations. So Tom will be up twice, once towards the beginning of the show with the giveaway, and then one's closer to the end of the show. And Congresswoman Wild is presenting the award also, so.
Gonna arrange for no snow this year to make Todd happy and all
There's
that.
no, we never spent that. Thanks, Mike.
So, thank you, Frank, appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't me, it was, but
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Okay, well, great, so that concludes my report, unless there's any other questions.
Question for
Jeff?
Tom.
Sure.
Subject near and dear to my heart. When is that Dunkin' Donuts opening?
What time?
Ribbon cutting is November 4th, that's Monday, at 9 a.m. at the Wiley Concourse. So, okay, sure thing.
Other questions for Tom on the director's report? Okay, so thank you very much, Tom, for another great report. Really appreciate it. Just two things I would close out on is, one, if you can please help get the word out on the blood drive, and also importantly, the Real ID. That's gonna hit us pretty quick and hard, and the Real ID, it could affect our operations, right? If all of a sudden customers, travelers aren't prepared, we could have some serious operational issues. So as leaders of the airport authority, if we can get the word out, role model, et cetera, that would help us greatly. I'm sure there's still gonna be some issues, but
You know,
the more we can
Colin's been
mitigate.
doing a great job with that. I think the other piece to that is if we're pushing information about Real ID, please, on social media, please feel free to share it with your folks and your connections. I think that's always helpful to just keep spreading that message.
Exactly. Thank you. And then, secondly, what we're seeing is a lot of success, right? And as I think I've shared in the beginning of the year, success begets success, which is great. We got some great momentum. We're doing a lot of things well. But I think with that comes a little bit of risk going forward. We have bigger opportunities, bigger projects, but we have bigger risks, right? So I think the only message I would share with staff and ourselves as a board is just to continue to run at a high level and support very strategically what we're doing. Because if we take our foot off the accelerator and celebrate our success a little too early, that's when sometimes trouble happens. Seen it before, and I just want to make sure that that message is resonating within our staff. We're doing wonderful. Let's keep doing wonderful, and let's keep paying attention as we have, and we'll continue to be successful. But if we take our eye off the ball a little bit, that's a big risk. So I would just, again, just remind us to just continue doing what we're doing and just don't take the foot off the accelerator, okay? So thank you very much for a great report. I'm now going to pass the floor over to Cedric Johnson and Michael Shepard for.
The solicitor's report will be presented in executive session because it relates to pending litigation matters.
Okay, so we'll continue on with new business, and gentlemen, Cedric Johnson and Michael Shepard will walk us through what is undoubtedly some pretty exciting times here at the airport. So hopefully you can give them your undivided attention.
All right, thank you.
So I think one of the things, as Cedric gets started here, is just, you know, we've talked a lot about, from a budget perspective, a number of perspectives, just looking ahead strategically. And I think, you know, this is a perfect segue into that strategic look ahead when we think of kind of the next steps for ABE. So Cedric Johnson with ADCI is going to get us started. I appreciate you being here today and excited to see the presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for making time for us consultants. Todd, I just clarified, we won't ask for money, we want to earn it.
I'll check in the mail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for really introducing the project as an exciting one, because we think it is. We think it's going to really improve the functionality over at the airport. So what we did is we put together a quick agenda for you. First, to go over the airport's goals and to make sure we remember the vision and where we're going. Secondly, the why, the what, and the how. Why do we need to do this project? Why is this terminal improvement important? What is it encompasses? Mike's going to walk you through that and a little bit of sustainability from the other Mike. And then finally, the how. How is it going to be paid for, and what's going to be the schedule for delivery? So those are the three basic parts. When we think about the goals, the vision of the board, the vision of the directors is to be the best regional airport system in North America. So we want to meet that vision. And what this project encompasses is, number one, the reliability piece. We all know about the escalators and the elevator concerns. This relieves that. The level of service component, improving the wayfinding for the customers, reducing the peak hour delays that occur with this traffic increase we're experiencing. Finally, the capacity piece and the TSA standards. Capacity, the numbers are showing that there needs to be improvements in order to deal with the traffic increases that you're experiencing. And then the last and not the least piece, the TSA standards. Security is still important at airports. It's going to be important for the foreseeable future. We want to make sure that we meet the standards requirements for new equipment and processing. Now a little bit about the why. You're already realizing that the airport's experiencing that traffic. We want to maintain the competitive edge you have in the region. And what that encompasses is making sure we maintain the ease and convenience for your customers. And you're going to see that this project does that. I don't like to refer to it as just an expense or a cost. It's an investment so that we can develop ourselves for the future and, as Todd alluded to in his presentation, continue to generate the revenue that the increase in traffic is foreseeing, that you're experiencing. I think I heard again and again in this presentation about current and expected passenger growth. The current growth is exceeding what the expectations were. So we've got to maintain the momentum and keep ourselves moving forward. And finally, just to elevate the overall customer experience. The community deserves that. The airport's been here for a long time. We want to make sure that the customers who come here, they're repeat customers. The 50,000 passengers you're seeing, they come back because the experience has been elevated overall. So what's going on currently at the airport, you can see the checkpoint is through underground through a tunnel. So you're up at the ticketing, you go down through the checkpoint. There's 2 lanes that are there, and there's the escalators that we have had reliability issues with to access the Wiley terminal. What are other airports doing to improve on the ease and convenience? These are just some snapshots of other checkpoints of airports of similar size. Above ground, elevated, open, reducing the stress for your passengers, increasing the experience for the passengers to return and use the airport again. What are the priorities? The master plan, the importance of that is the master plan is actually taking FAA's projected terminal area forecast. Your forecasts are significantly exceeding what the FAA's forecasts are. However, the master plan, the conclusions were you needed checkpoint improvements and you need improvement to the vertical circulation based on those projections. So we're exceeding those, so it even fortifies the need for the project that we have. So a quick description about the project. I'm going to turn that over to our architect, Mike Stewart.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Stewart, Stewart Partnership Architects. As Ed mentioned, gave us some good context of sort of how we got here. I'd like to talk a little bit about our vision of going forward and what this could be. Just a little bit of context first. We really want to focus in on the checkpoint, that connector, and then vertical circulation improvements. Again, just some context, just some quantifiable numbers to kind of tell everyone we need more space, right? So in terms of the master plan, where you are today, 150 people per lane per hour, 2 lanes plus the TSA pre-check. You factor in growth of anywhere from 15 to 40%, and you see today you're about 1,750 square feet, and you start to extrapolate out in terms of meeting that growth, the type of space that you need for your checkpoint. You can start to see how, a little under 1,000 square feet in 2017 in terms of the space you need, and then going even further out, you can see where that deficit is and why we need more space for a larger checkpoint area. As far as the connector goes, and again, it gives you some context of sort of why we made the decisions that we made. This graphic kind of gives you sort of outlays all the issues, right? So in terms of inbound, outbound traffic circulation paths, the green path is the outbound path, and the yellow path is the inbound path. And currently, they overlap, right? So, whether you're flying in or you're flying out, you're having to sort of retrace the same steps. And from an intuitive wayfinding standpoint, that gets to be problematic. So that's sort of one sort of bigger issue. Obviously, talked a little bit about the checkpoints and why we need a bigger size. And then also, again, an intuitive wayfinding piece is in terms of that green path. Intuitively, I'm coming in high, right, on the departures level, then I'm going down, then I'm going through a tunnel, then I'm going up, and I'm going up again. So, traveling public, that can provide, stress, which Sed talked about, which I love that you brought that up. We really try to manage stress in terms of how we create, architectural environments for traveling public. you really want to manage that stress. So up, down, under, up, and up, that can be stressful. And then Sid also mentioned just the equipment, the elevator, the lack of stair, all those pieces are important components to why it is we're doing what we're doing. And then that big X that you see, not only do we have the two paths working together, inbound, outbound, but then they cross, which obviously can be an issue. So what are we going to do? What's our vision from a planning perspective? Again, so what we've done here, first and foremost, is we're decoupling inbound and outbound, right? So again, that green piece is an outbound, and that yellow is an inbound. Yellow follows a very similar path that we have today, with the exception of a new vertical circulation component. But the outbound path, you stay up, you're in the ticketing building, you go through a new wide, bright light filled space for a checkpoint, and then we kind of get you up and over so that we can maintain apron traffic, and then you're out at the Wiley Concourse. So that's really a very intuitive way to work your way through on an outbound and then on an inbound way. Inbound, I'm flying in, I'm going down to bag claim. That's kind of intuitive, and it kind of makes sense. And then through all of this, you're trying to infuse light, in terms of bringing passengers through that space. Light's kind of an important part to that. Focusing in just a little bit on the checkpoint, in terms of this new at-grade connector. Essentially, you can see the queue length in that pink area at the bottom of the screen. That's where the passenger queuing happens. And that yellow area is really a checkpoint, 4-lane checkpoint area. And then all this blue area that you see, those are supporting program that helps support that checkpoint. One piece that's really important is the TSA on-screen resolution room. Basically what happens is rather than screening at the device, you're screening in a room, a remote room, and you can process people a lot quicker. So from an efficiency standpoint, that's really helpful to have that, and why this space needs to be sort of much bigger than you might anticipate due to the program required. Again, from a vision standpoint, up in the clouds, looking down, axonometric view, you have the main concourse. Over to the right, our new connector that you see, connecting from the main to the Wiley Concourse. Just to give everybody a sense of sort of what's new, these are the two pieces that can give you a sense of what's new in terms of construction. So the sort of wider curving piece is that checkpoint and connector, and then the inbound piece is that new vertical circulation core, which is that smaller box on the right. Sense of views, and again, this is a very early vision of what we're trying to do. Again, trying to bring in some light into the checkpoint space. We have a sort of a flow in terms of, there's an architectural move that sort of insinuates that change in elevations from low to high. And then that bigger brow that you see at the top, we can bring in some really good northern light into that space as well, which would be helpful. Another view from the west, and a little bit closer. You can kind of get a sense of, again, that access underneath the bridge. Getting a little bit further in, how we're going to look at how we're going to manage daylight coming in. We still have sustainability considerations that Michael Bobowski was going to talk in a second about. Now I'm inside the space. You can kind of get a sense of the checkpoint. Where do I go? Intuitively, I know where to go right here. I know exactly where I need to go in terms of following that escalator up. There are no signs in this. There will be signs eventually, but there are no signs in this view, and the idea is that you want to kind of pull people through that space. At the top of that escalator, you get this great commanding view of the apron on both sides and your approach to Wiley Concourse. And then as you get through the up on the bridge above, again, looking out, that box you see, that glass box, through this glazing is the inbound piece. Now I'm actually in that inbound piece looking. I'm about to go down the escalator, and I can see got some good natural light coming in, and then I can see the connector as well. And now I'm down in this is a new dog leg that gets down into the tunnel and connects the tunnel to the existing circulation flow that we have today. So this next piece is going to be a fly-through. So the idea is that you are coming into departures level, the doors open, and then this is what happens. So I walk in, you can see ticketing is over to my right. I have some concessions over to my left. Again, work your way into this. We pierce this, the glass is there now. We really open this up. So we have some queuing in this particular area here. some lighting elements to brighten that up a bit. And as we work our way through, you kind of see, again, you know, big, open, wide, bright space. That's something that will start to reduce the overall stress of that environment. You can also see where you need to go. It's kind of intuitive beyond. You work your way through the checkpoint, through recomposure, and
Not
then-
that fast,
Yeah, probably not. And then vertical circulation components, both with elevators, escalators, and stairs, take your way up to the top. And again, that kind of really great view. There's nothing like coming up at the top, and then, you know, at the very end of my vista, I can see a plane. You know, nothing like seeing a tail when you know where you're going on heading to an airplane, which is really, from an intuitive standpoint, pretty strong. Again, you can see that inbound piece that you see on the apron below, which gives a hint of, okay, I'm flying out, and when I fly in, that's probably how I'm going to get my way back out, and flipping back around. So, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Pavowski, who's our Sustainability Director, who's going to talk a little bit about why sustainable.
Thanks, everybody. So we have been working with the airport, and we know sustainability is really important, and to look at this project through the lens of sustainability. So these are some of the reasons we've really been focused on this for this expansion project. You have long-term, you're sort of like operating like a mini city. You're operational almost all the time, so you have high cost, you have a high passenger volume and employees, so high water and energy use that's constantly happening. A lot of waste, hopefully a lot of recycling, but also a lot of waste from traveling public, 24/7 operations, and it all equates to a lot of environmental impact. And we talked a lot about sort of this is the airport. This airport is an amenity of the community, to be a good steward of it, and that goes hand in hand with how you manage your environmental footprint of this airport. So one of the things we've looked at on a preliminary basis is how does this project could fit under the umbrella of LEED certification, using that as sort of a metric to certify the project and communicate to the public that it is a green, energy efficient project and you're being good stewards of environmental and fiscal responsibility. So a few of these just key points I wanted to focus on was sort of, this would build on, we have now these international airports existing sustainability program that you have, communicating to the public. We also have the ability to sort of be a leader nationally in sustainability in aviation, and again, going back to what Cedric had mentioned, the mission statement of this airport, really be one of the best or the best regional airports in the country. From a sustainability perspective, we could also weave that in. And from a dollars and cents standpoint, look at reduced operating costs for the lifetime of this particular airport and then this new building as well. So LEED, just for people who aren't familiar with it, we would look at these categories. So this project is really touching everything that's in these categories. So looking at your site, how is the stormwater going to be managed with this new building? How are we dealing with water conservation in the building? So if there's restroom components, how are we managing that? Looking at energy, so the state of Pennsylvania adopted new, much more stringent energy codes at the beginning of this year, at the beginning of the second quarter of 2019. So we would also be looking at that. The materials that go into the space, we talked a lot about making sure there's a lot of natural light, a lot of daylighting that comes into the space, so transforming it from being in a tunnel to being above grade with good natural light, and then looking at the quality of the materials from a health perspective that are also going into the building. I'm going to turn it back over to Cedric.
So you just saw the what. The importance there to remember is functionality. You know, this improvement brings functionality, it meets those goals, reliability. I think you saw 4 new elevators, 4 new escalators, dealing with the reliability issue. Level of service, you saw intuitive wayfinding, like Mike alluded to, brighter space versus going in a tunnel, now we're going above ground. With capacity, the numbers, the 4 lanes processing really up to 180 per hour drives this, so for the next 20 years, you're meeting the requirements at the airport. And then the TSA standards are intuitive there. We space it for the equipment size, what TSA is doing. All the new technology, whether it be biometrics or real ID, I'm gonna get mine too one day. They're all extremely important here. But that question always goes to the board and directors. Okay, that's all great, but how? How are you gonna deliver this? And you know, that always ends up with schedule and cost. and that's our job. So it's the schedule in general, the metrics of it. It's a 3-year scenario. We are just going underway here with the design and concept validation. That's about 12 months for delivery and procurement. And then there's a 2-year construction period that goes along with that. So what we're talking about is kind of the end of 2022, the delivery of the checkpoint. Again, Mr. Chairman, I listen to you when you talk about reducing risk, maintaining momentum. This is still, a 3-year program if we start today. Secondly, the cost. Okay, year one is the design, the validation, about $3 million, and then secondly, the full construction is about $19 million. This is a programmatic cost of $22 million. Again, cost is the wrong word, sorry, hard. Investment is the most important thing for the revenue generation. So how do we pay for it? In the process right now, going through some grant opportunities that are out there and submitting applications for that. We know about the PFC contribution. It stays consistent, related to the increase in numbers and traffic. So the PFC is on the increase in numbers of traffic, and then your employment revenue generation that just comes with it. Again, we're exceeding forecast. I think in one of the committee meetings we talked about needing to be about that 46,000 passenger range to meet the requirement, the dollar figure, to pay it off over years. That's what we are continually to work through. So we promise to keep this brief. I struggle to do that at all times, but again, the next steps for us, the concept validation, we've shown you pretty pictures, we've shown you the concept. Now we're going to validate everything and refine so we can come back and make sure we can deliver on everything. This is a 2020 CIP continuance, so we're moving forward with Ryan on that. And then I mentioned the grant submissions and finding the other funding mechanisms to do this. Continually, because this improvement will affect everyone at the airport, it will affect the community. There's a significant amount of stakeholder coordination that needs to go, whether it's TSA, whether it's the directors, whether it's the airlines, whether it's the passengers. There's a lot of stakeholder coordination for implementation and phasing to deliver this on time. But we do believe this is going to, number one, improve the functionality at the airport for the long term. It's going to allow you to maintain momentum. It's going to allow you to realize the vision that you set and help us be the instrument of that and make this facility a top-notch facility here in the country. So thanks for your time and listening to us. I hope I kept it brief enough, Paul. Great. And then we'd like to, any questions?
Questions for Cedric and the team? Wonderful presentation, by the way, as always.
Thank you.
Exciting. I hope I was right in the sense of, yeah, Larry.
Cedric, I had a question. I know we've skimmed through and this is just a first blush, but I looked at the connector. It appeared to me in the first picture here, you looked like a 4-lane highway going into an alley. Is what it kind of looked like. I mean, how diverse is it? How much is it going to have to shrink down to get through that connector?
So the area out on the other side of the checkpoint is the recomposure area, okay? And that area is sized pretty significantly towards the TSA standards too. So it's not like you're just funneling through and just walking straight through. There's kind of a recomposure, and then there's a nice open, the bridge itself is, I think, relatively open and space for TSA standards.
Yeah, so are you talking about at the entry to the queuing area and how it's sort of wide and then in that curve it gets a little
narrows
narrow?
down, yes.
Yeah, so I think in that regard, it's a totally valid issue. For us, there's some existing structural components and design that we just have to deal with. It would be cost prohibitive to kind of mess with that. So that threshold is what it is to a certain degree. I think what we're going to try to do is, there is a lot of space out there, and how we work out that queuing and how we manage through that, we have to work through that to make sure, to your point, that it looks intuitive, that I need to go through it, and it doesn't look small or cramped or tight or anything like that.
I think you're worried about the size versus the narrow down. Yeah, that's, and it's actually, the size of it itself was driven really too by the TSA equipment and the spacing requirements that are forcing that size. And then after you're through, the equipment's not there, so now you're just talking about people going.
Yeah, Larry, great catch. Felt a little bit the same way, and like you said, there's probably some structural considerations that
Sure.
make it cost prohibitive.
I said knock out the whole structure and we'll do the whole
Make
thing.
it all
at the
day.
same time.
Right. We can't do that.
Yeah. Great catch. Other questions for Cedric and the team? Okay, hearing none, first, thank you very much for a great presentation. And I just have to say, the way you present it is very strategic, and it's very user-friendly. So I applaud you for that.
Thank
Because
you.
every time you walk us through, I get the what, the how, the why, et cetera.
Right.
So continue to
Okay.
do that. It's
Okay.
very-
Great.
Very well thought out. Number two is, I think, this follows our vision of being, one of the best, if not the best regional airport in the country. And I think, I remember a couple of years ago, when we were setting that bar at the strategic offsite, at the time, we were probably thinking, this is gonna be a stretch. But a project like this, and I don't wanna limit it to one project, but, if this project comes to fruition, which I hope it does, and we all do, it will put us on the map as one of the most progressive, exciting airports in the country. So we are on our way of achieving it, and our operating and financial performance is definitely heading in the right direction, and this would definitely catapult us into that. So thank you for all those who set forth the exciting vision, and thank you for supporting it, and let's hope we can get this done. The only other thing I would close with is, we raised this at the committee meeting. These are all exciting times, and the economy is helping us, our performance is helping us, but you never know, like the stock market, when there could be something that hinders that exciting growth. And let's please plan for that rainy day if it comes, because the last thing we want to do is be committing $22 million plus, and something goes awry, and all of a sudden, we're now finding ourselves backpedaling. So I think it's kind of, how do we stage this so that we take the steps we need to, but if something goes upside down, we can pull out, and then, not walking away, but just readdress until we're ready to go back, until the economy improves, until our performance improves. I'm just asking you to consider that as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so thank you, everyone, for your attention. Exciting stuff. Thank you again. Appreciate it. I think that closes out our new business, right, Tom?
Yep, that was new business. Just before we jump into the next session, we thought we'd have a short recess and take a break, and we'll then jump into the next session. That's possible.
Before we do that, I just wanted, just to your point, because I wanted to just put that, do we want to cover off just your solicitor report before we go into executive session and approve the, well, we already approved it, I think, in the committee meeting, but.
The only thing I have, the only participation I have today is the litigation matter that we're gonna discuss in executive session.
Okay. All right, so since we approved the solicitor's report in the committee meeting, then why don't we just then take a brief break, and then we are going to go into executive session. I do anticipate it's going to be a lengthy one. We've got quite a few matters to discuss. So are we voting on anything, John, before?
Potentially the police collective bargaining agreement.
So we may be voting on the police bargaining agreement, so if you need to stay around for the results of that vote. Like I said, I anticipate at least an hour for executive session. So, thank you. We'll take a brief break, everyone, and can I get a motion to go into executive session? So moved by Mike. Can I get a second? Seconded by Mike. Okay, we're going to be entering executive session. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, everyone, we're back from executive session. We discussed, Judge, can you summarize?
For the record, in executive session, we discussed a litigation matter, and we also discussed a labor contract matter, which is now going to be the subject of a motion, as I understand it.
Can I please get a motion to approve the police collective bargaining agreement as presented by Tom and Todd?
I'll make a motion.
So moved by Tara. Can I get a second? Seconded by Frank. Questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving the police collective bargaining agreement as presented by Tom, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Great. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody, for a good meeting.